Hi, my name is Alex Suso, and I'll be presenting on cryptocurrencies and precious metals. So precious metals are metals that are rare and have high economic value due to various factors, including their scarcity, use in industrial processes, and role throughout history as a store of value. They are popularly invested as hedges against inflation, other forms of economic uncertainty, and to diversify a person's portfolio. There's a few examples of precious metals down at the bottom. People purchase precious metals usually in the form of bullion or standard gold bars or gold coins. You could also purchase them as collectibles, which has a little bit more nuance in terms of how you invest them and maybe not useful for most people. And also in the form of jewelry, but never do that because jewelry is simply impure compared to the other forms. And also there's tremendous markup prices with the initial cost. What usually drives precious metal prices is systemic instability, economic or political or otherwise. When people are afraid that things are taking a downturn economically, they oftentimes end up purchasing precious metals. And this drives up the demand and this drives up the price. That's what's happened this year with COVID, as we've seen this a tremendous little explosion towards the end of this graph in the price of gold. There's a few other variables that affect prices of precious metals. The more variables that affect the price of a precious metal, the more volatile it is likely to be, such as in the case of platinum, which has influences all the way from the auto industry to cartel actions in the countries that they're mined from. So they are taxed as collectibles by the IRS regardless of how you purchase them. And once an asset, a precious metal asset is purchased, if a gain is made on it within 1 year, it's taxed as at an ordinary income rate. But if the gain is made on it after 1 year, then it's taxed at the person's marginal tax rate up to 28%. So here's a pre-tax cash flow of gold without any storage or insurance. It's very simple. A person just purchases gold. They don't pay for any storage or insurance, which they should, until they sell it, and then they make a return on investment. Here's an instance where they actually do have a periodic and cost of insurance and storage, and also a transaction cost at the very end. And in this case, you can see that there's no depreciation. The taxable income doesn't take into effect until it is sold, and the after-tax cash flow has a rate of return of 4.15%. Cryptocurrencies are digital or virtual currencies secured by cryptography, which makes them nearly impossible to counterfeit or double spend. There's a few examples right here, and most of them have artificial caps at a certain amount that could be created within their lifetimes. They may or may not expand those caps over time. There's a few advantages and disadvantages to them. An advantage is that they're decentralized. They're not controlled by a single government or bank, which may or may not be an advantage. It depends on who you're talking to. There's varying levels of privacy. There's different quirks and perks that you can get for each cryptocurrency that you don't have with other forms of currency. And they're artificially scarce, kind of like precious metals, which makes them valuable to a certain extent. But there's some disadvantages in that it might be a bubble. It might be something where people are really excited about for a amount of time, and then they realize that there's no eternal worth, and then it just pops out of existence. You could also lose them, and professionals really just say that it's not really worth it. So they're taxed as a virtual property by the IRS, and you have to report every single Bitcoin transaction no matter how much it cost you. So even if you paid for 1 penny's worth in Bitcoin, you have to report that to the IRS. Similarly to precious metals, it depends on how long you've had the asset. If you had the asset for less than 1 year, you're subject to tax rates from anywhere from 10% to 37%, depending on how much you make on ordinary income. But if you have it for more than a year, then you can be taxed at either 0, 15, or 20%. So here's a pre-tax cash flow of Bitcoin, very similar to the pre-tax cash flow of gold. No storage in this case, huge rate of return on this one specifically. Here's the post-tax cash flow of that same one that we just looked at. Again, you don't have a taxable income until after you sell it, and the rate of return here is also tremendous. Cryptocurrency is an emerging currency. So they're really mined by people, and what's going to be the future of cryptocurrency really depends on what the communities that mine them are interested in. So in conclusion, neither of these two assets are wealth building. They don't create wealth for anyone who owns them. And because they're forced by hype, it's really important to make sure that you have an informed decision before you decide to invest in any of them. So thank you for paying attention to this.